call tonight's EDA meeting to order. And Karen, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Husnick?
Here.
Commissioner Lorge?
Here.
Commissioner Larson?
Here.
Commissioner Grindal?
Here.
And Commissioner Hoyt? And President Bain.
Here. I'd like to invite everyone to rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members of the EDA, we have an agenda before you. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I move we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and our agenda is approved. Our next item this evening is to approve the minutes from our regular meeting of May 18th.
So moved.
And there is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carries. Next item is to approve minutes from the Joint Council EDA workshop, which was June 12th. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, ma'am.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and minutes are approved. And then finally, minutes from our EDA workshop of August 14th. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the workshop on August 14th, excuse me.
August 14th. Is there a second?
I'll second it, ma'am.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and minutes are approved. Next item is item 8, which is a review of our EDA work plan. And Abby.
Thank you, Mayor Bain, members of the council, EDA. I may have President Bain and members of the EDA. In March of this year, you were briefed on our current work plan, which was adopted in February of 2021. Included in your packet tonight was the work plan. We're going to start doing some work plan development through the rest of 2023. But I wanted to at least just note a couple of the accomplishments that aren't reflected in the work plan as you've seen it tonight. The update to the Commercial Improvement Incentive Program. Again, that's that forgivable loan or the grant program for facades. We expanded that throughout most of the community. We've had a few interested parties. Nobody's participated in that program this year. Adoption of the downtown plan. This year, authorization of the boat launch, relocation of shoreline stabilization study, and then also undergoing our business subsidy policy development. So just reviewing those policies and procedures. As I noted, we're going to start working on work plan updates because a lot of the things that are in our current work plan just need review and time to kind of reconsider whether or not those are the goals that are going to carry us forward in the next few years. So we'll continue to work on what's outstanding for this year, that shoreline study, the downtown stuff that we've been working on. Most of our next upcoming meetings will kind of be that policy development, bringing that back for you, and then also work plan and development. So tonight, all I'm asking is for feedback on the existing work plan and just some high-level thoughts for work plan update. And I do have the work plan here. I'm happy to pull it up if we want to review it together as a group. I'll just kind of defer to you, President Bain, and the EDA of how we want to have this conversation.
Personally, I think it'd be beneficial if we just reviewed section by section and kind of took discussion as we, discussion as we go section by section.
Sure, it could be helpful too.
I don't know the specific page number in your packet, but it wasn't a large packet. Hopefully you found it. Oh, Karen, would you please pull up the screen for folks?
Yeah, so goal 1 is on page,
15.
Yeah, it's,
15, 16, somewhere around there. It says 6 in my packet, but that's because I
15
just
on
have the
top
work
of
plan
the-
open.
I'm
But-
seeing it on page
15.
18 of the PDF.
Let's see. I don't even,
After the opportunities and challenges.
13.
I don't know if we want
Oh, of the actual goals, yeah.
Yeah.
Page 18, support marketing efforts for the city of Forest Lake to promote both the community's assets and the local business community. Evaluate the CVB for Forest Lake. I did have talked with Nanette with the chamber a little bit about this. So far, this hasn't necessarily been something that has had a whole lot of traction in the community. It would require some more partnership with the community and business outreach. But that is certainly right now, there's been local discussions, but they've been more internal between staff and the chamber. And then continue to attend and speaking at Minnesota Real Estate Journal and MNCAR events. And we regularly do attend. The Minnesota Real Estate Journal do have quarterly trainings maybe about that. We've presented at them. Additionally, I am scheduled to attend the MNCAR event this year. Dan had been doing that in the past, but that'll be I'll be there to just put Forest Lake's face out there in the development community. So those are currently what we're doing and our efforts in supporting marketing. Let me just kind of keep moving on. You want to talk about these at all?
Maybe pause and any initial feedback or questions related to goal 1. I guess I'm curious on, just to kind of get us kicked off on conversation. I'm curious on the creation of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. I feel maybe that's maybe stalled out, and so when feedback's given that we need to do more partnership, or that it's just doesn't have support, and is it something that is not seem to be feasible, or is there additional effort that we should put into that? I guess I'm looking for, I guess, feedback from anybody. Yeah, Nanette or
Sure, I can
whoever.
give you some perspective
Yeah, perfect.
from our office. It's just been on the back burner, I think, for quite some time. I know Councilman Leif Erickson brought it up to me not so very long ago, just as a revisit, and so it's just been one of those things, I think, maybe maybe the year before COVID, we started talking about it a little bit, and then it just went underground again, and that's pretty much where we've been with it. So there's been really, Abby and I have just touched the surface on it and know that there's been research and work done back by Ted Blank, the man who had my position prior. And so that's basically where we're at. We haven't had any conversations outside of that, just that there was some work done, and that's where it sits.
Do you, if we didn't have this on the agenda this evening or on the work plan for the EDA, do you feel that there's support for it that would get legs, that it's still a good partnership and that it should still be pursued? Or is it, I guess I'm
I think-
delicately asking, is this maybe an idea that just doesn't have enough support to really kind of take the next step?
Well, I think that where we landed when we had the conversation back then was looking at involving a variety of communities, because really from Forest Lake standpoint, we've got
Yes.
Country Inn and Suites, and then Running Aces is technically Columbus, so there'd have to be. So again, there's more communities involved. So I think that's where we kind of are at. It's who are we drawing from? I think too, there's a possibility, I'm not sure, but with Airbnb's properties, so I think that's a new component to the whole conversation. So again, it's just, it's been finding the right people and starting those conversations all over. I think it's just kind of dredging up all the information that was
Right.
researched before, and then start to have those strategic conversations around some of the other areas. Now, with that being said, we had also talked more regionally. Dan and I particularly, Dan Undum and I talked about that, again, way back. And so, at some point, do we look at something that's a little bit more regional for the lakes? So again, those are just all topics that kind of have come up in conversation as we've not really gone deep on any of it.
Understood.
Can I just ask clarification? So the goal, I see what the goal is outlined here, but just so I understand, the goal of this is really to be bringing conferences into the area? You're talking about running
Oh,
ACES and.
great question, great question. So what this is, it's a visitors bureau, and so typically those are operated out of a chamber with funds that are generated from. Okay, good. That's not me. It sounds like mine.
No, sorry about that. Apologize.
And so the funds for the Visitors Bureau come from occupancy tax, and those are taxes that are put on with stays at hotels, and then again, like I said, now with the influx of Vrbo and Airbnb, I'm not sure if those properties fall in that line as well, but so the customer doesn't get any of, feel any of the impact of it. It's just rolled into the cost of their stay at the hotel. And so then those funds are then directed towards us for marketing and promoting the area through this Visitors Bureau.
Okay, so it's just getting more visitors to the area.
And that the funds then do come from those folks that are staying at the hotels instead of, say, a city tax or any kind of local tax that then puts the pressure on the local community. It's more from a visitor standpoint, too.
Refresh my memory. Is there a Visitors Bureau up Lindstrom or anywhere going up?
Yes, there is.
And I will note that Dan Undum and I did talk before he left, that he had initial conversations with the Chisago Lakes, or I think that's what they kind of call themselves, maybe that Chisago Lakes area, about the potential partnership that Forest Lake and even Wyoming or Columbus. And so I think it's more of whether or not there's interest in, as Nanette is saying, in this regional marketing efforts and how that structure would really come to be. It's, I think, a little bit larger than just Forest Lake itself. Some lodging tax dollars would be nice to help offset some of the marketing. I think the efforts to put forth for it to just be an exclusively city program just really doesn't outweigh the cost benefit there. So
It might not have enough legs. I like that approach because I think about, like, I've had relatives come on a bus from Fargo to go do, St. Croix Falls, Taylor's Falls, wine tour, things like that. And you could do a lake. I mean, our lake is our great asset. You could do something on the lake, or, it has to be event, something cool that, just city events that bring in people. And then you go to whatever, Rustic Roots or Lindstrom, and it's the tea kettle and all the little cool things in this area that everyone benefits from. But, it takes those event planning, from those various areas. But I think that could work really nicely. And if I don't know what VRBOs are in the area or Airbnbs, but, those are the things that are hot for, people to say. That's a cool girls'
Right, those
weekend.
didn't exist when we first started talking, when I
Yeah.
first took over the role, we were not talking about those kinds of properties at the level that they're at now. And then just from an execution standpoint, typically with these kinds of centers, they're, again, usually directed through a chamber, typically, and then you share resources, and so then the funding from the occupancy tax then helps to pay for staffing and the various, so a portion of the chamber work that is then geared towards the Visitors Bureau. So, hope that makes sense.
Part of, I think, the goal of the creation of the Visitors Bureau is it also, wasn't that the mechanism for us to get traction on some of the Explore Minnesota websites that were very specific to Visitors Bureau, and that gave access to that platform? And without having that bureau, our region is kind of excluded from some of those kind of larger statewide resources. So that gateway to that resource was one of the reasons as well.
That would be an interesting thing to look at now. I have had some contact from Explore Minnesota, so again, I'm not sure if that's the way that operates now,
It
so.
would be good to know.
Yeah, I'll make note of that to check into that.
The other thing I'd suggest, I know we don't want to get into the weeds here, but there's so many cool, like, TikTok influencers that are, like, even in Minnesota, that are like, don't forget this cool coffee shop, and they're bringing, Coffee Smith, whatever, they're going in there, and that's how people are getting people in droves that are just going on a hike at this park. And I mean, there's a lot of local Minnesota influencers out there that are just drawing attention to, oh, did you know that there's this black sand beach up in whatever it is, north of Lutzen? I forget where it is. But, you know, then people go, oh my gosh, I want to go there, because they see it, and that's really cool. So I don't know if we have a social media presence and who's. But anyway, just
We
another
we
idea.
don't really, but I think that this is a really good start of a conversation that we should continue to have over these next few months as we look at, are these still the right goals for us as we're moving forward? When the city first developed its work plan, Chris and I were talking, it was maybe about 2018, 2 years before the pandemic, right?
Right.
That was a whole different world in a lot of ways. And so what is this work plan really going to look like in the next few years? So I think that these are all, you know, some of those branching off great ideas to figure out what are we going to do the next few years, so.
Any other conversations around goal? Go ahead, Jenny.
Well, kind of jumping ahead one step, back to Airbnbs. Does the city have regulations and guidelines and definitions and,
We do not.
because you can't really go to, and how do you find the Airbnbs? How do you inform them? How do you ask them if they want to participate or make them participate into?
We do not regulate overnight lodging in that fashion. We actually don't regulate any rentals in the city. And so it is, I will say, having come from all of the communities I've worked on in the past in Minnesota, Oregon, and Colorado, are very difficult programs to manage when you start working with Airbnbs or that overnight lodging, short-term rental. It's not to say that it's not possible, but there's just there's a lot of factors to consider there.
Okay, so as far as tying them into the hospitality industry, that's not going to happen.
If the city enacted a requirement for lodging tax, they would be obligated to pay lodging taxes
So
as
you would
well.
have to find them and track them and,
Yes.
okay.
Should we move into goal 2?
Sure. Promote downtown revitalization, complete the downtown planning process. We did do that at the end of 2022 or middle of 2022. And then continue to promote the downtown and business incentive program. That's that $5,000, predominantly the $5,000 abatement for facade improvements, but also reduced permit fees, 10-day building permit turnaround times. That is ongoing. We do receive inquiries for those, but we haven't received not a whole lot of attraction to the program. You moving on? You guys want to chat about downtown revitalization? Obviously, that'll be a good point for future discussion. We're talking about our work plan development.
That's exactly where my head was. It seems like we have checked the box on, you know, this was the plan 2021, and there's been progress forward, and now we need to kind of do the planning for what's the next phase. And so as we do like full update of work plan, I look forward to kind of staff's recommendation on what is the next, as we peel that onion for downtown in particular.
Well, staff is also interested in hearing from you, so those will be fun conversations.
I mean, I guess, you know, we had to that point, we had specifically, you know, identified, you know, the boat launch, shoreline. Good to hear those, you know,
Yep.
conclusions come, you know, those conclusions come back. And then we had also talked about, you know, the expansion of both the expansion of the current incentive program and then us just doing the broader overall umbrella incentive program. I think also the adoption of that policy sets the framework for further, you know, potential incentives that are going to be, I would expect to be impactful to downtown. How that layers into our next best piece, I guess I'm open to, you know, what some of those ideas should be, until we, you know, until we get these next two pieces kind of across the finish line. It's hard to identify
Sure.
specifically. like,
Yep,
what
no,
that-
that's understandable. I think maybe what we'll do in advance of kind of really starting to dig into work plan development is maybe revisiting like that downtown plan. I'll provide you with an update tonight on the shoreline study and the boat launch study. I would say by October, we'll probably have some preliminary feedback, not final results by any means. But I think all of that can kind of lead then into those conversations that we need to have about where do we focus our efforts? Where do you guys direct me to focus my efforts? So, all right. Goal 3, actively market and promote the city-owned land to attract new commercial development. So supporting being a part of the Minnesota Technology Corridor with Headwaters 123. That is continue and ongoing. We do vet out interested potential development opportunities for the 123. Do talk a little bit about this tonight. And then also partner with the county CDA and attend real estate and development trade shows. Work to establish a contact list with commercial real estate. Again, we do regularly attend the MinCar Expo. We don't have any sort of trade show booth display or any marketing materials. That is, I think, an opportunity for us as we continue to move forward. But that's where we're sitting right now with those. The goal actually was to actively market and promote the city. So. Support workforce development through the establishment of active partnerships with local businesses and workforce development training providers to build a dynamic workforce within Forest Lake. Work with local area businesses whenever possible to learn about challenges in finding and retaining talent. Make connections with workforce development training providers, educators, others to identify opportunities to address these challenges. Just an update that might not be on here, and since I've come on board in the last year now, I've been trying to regularly attend the Chamber's monthly ribbon cutting events. I've done coffee and connections, definitely trying to promote the county's Open to Business program, which I think is a phenomenal program that most of our businesses don't know about. Free technical assistance right here at City Hall or else virtually with our county representative. But these are just little ways that I think it's just those connections, right? As a lot of it is just meeting people, talking with people, hearing what's going on, and trying to make that connection as we see fit. I don't know if either the county or the chamber want to provide any updates either on this.
I think it's been great having Abby in her role. We meet regularly and have conversation, and more often than not, when we're together, there's somebody that I can direct her to, and I think that it's been good. When Dan was here, he wasn't. At least, she was there and able to meet people, and it just has been a really great thing to have her available and have her showing up and meeting our business professionals. That's been fantastic. The other piece of this, are you going to talk more about the second leg?
The Career Launch Program. The other one just being the Career Launch Program that we've got a few of them
because one
here.
of the other things from Chris and I's standpoint is we did do the surveying. Gosh, how long ago was that? Well, we surveyed like in October 2 years, 22. And from that business survey, we did that across Washington County. And from that then, our coalition of chambers in Washington County, of which Forest Lake is a part of, we created a summit. And so we've been hosting these summits in each of the 8 locations. And it's Optimize Your Business Summit. And they have been fantastic. Not only Forest Lake business owners are showing up and having great conversations, learning that they're not the only ones, whatever they're dealing with, and it doesn't matter. They could be Xcel Energy or they could be a small mom and pop shop. It doesn't matter. They've just found great unity in the fact that there's no competition that happens in the room, and they're having really open conversations. They're facilitated conversations with moderators from throughout Washington County, including Open to Business, somebody from Deed, Lee Hall, Rick Roy from Workforce in Washington County. So they've been fantastic. After we did our first one, I just said, please, can we have it here? And so we actually hosted one here in February, I believe. And so we've been making our rounds to each of the chambers within the county. We have another one coming up in Cottage Grove, and folks will travel, and it doesn't matter. So that's been just a really great partnership between the work that we've done with surveying and Washington County. So loving it.
President Bain and members, just to add on to to piggyback on some of Nanette's comments, one of the really important aspects of this particular goal is to partner with the school. Mike Miron and Molly Bonnet have a phenomenal program out at the high school called Career Launch. And it's so important to make those connections between the students and the businesses and the workforce providers in the chamber, and just make sure everybody's having the conversation so that when businesses are looking for employees, they know that they can go to the school, and hopefully the curriculum is in place and the training is in place and the education is in place to put those students right into a job and hopefully help them find a good work right here in the community. And so we're going to continue to support that, not only at the county level, but hopefully at the chamber and the city level as well. And certainly working with Mike and Molly to make sure that program is successful is a very, very important component of what we do at economic development in the county. So just want to highlight that as well.
Fantastic.
Can I piggyback on that? I'm glad that you mentioned that, because we as a chamber partnered with the Career Launch Program for our first summit, kind of stole the same words, and because it worked so well, right? And so we co-hosted at the beginning, mid-August with the school, with Career Launch, and I would say there were over 50 business professionals in the room, so it was fantastic. And in fact, the chamber is hosting a business luncheon on hiring and retention, and Mike Miron from that program will be one of our panelists. So again, that's been a great addition to everything that we've been doing as well.
The
Questions on this topic? Abby, I don't mean to cut you off. Let's jump. Any other questions on this topic? All right, great update.
The only other one on here was the labor shed study, and I don't know if Chris has any update on whether or not the county is going to do a labor shed study.
Which one? Sorry.
Labor shed study?
The labor shed?
Yeah.
Yeah. President Bain and members, one of the things that I'd be willing to do if you're interested is just this past year, we did contract with a nonprofit organization called Real-Time Talent, and they're an organization based in the Twin Cities that does labor studies and workforce supply studies, workforce demand studies, and we engaged them to do a study for Washington County, and they did look into a little bit in Chisago County as well. And if you're interested, we can have somebody come present the findings. We just had them do that at Lake Elmo a couple of weeks ago, and the Lake Elmo EDA was just blown away by the study. There's so much really good information in there, and I think from a planning perspective, it might kind of help you develop your work plan to say, okay, these are our supply, this is what's available. This is what the businesses are demanding. Is there a match? And, kind of working your plan to make sure that we're making the connection between what's available and what the businesses are looking for. So let me know. We could certainly have Real-Time Talent come up and maybe do a 20-minute presentation with 10 minutes for questions if you're interested at some point in time in the future. We have a small contract with them to do those presentations. They did break the county down into 3 sections. They really looked at the Forest Lakes Area School District, which is a pretty big part of the northern part of the county, the Stillwater School District, which is a pretty big part of the central part of the county, and then the South Washington County School District down from Woodbury into Cottage Grove. So we kind of broke it into 3 different categories, and we could focus on all of them if you want, or just talk about the northern part of the county, whatever you'd like to do, if you're interested.
I think that would be great.
Yes.
Doesn't that help build the story if we're going to prospective, employers that want to come to our, area?
Yep.
Then you've got the workforce information that they, I would
And
imagine.
that's the
they wanna
primary
know.
reason we did the studies. We wanted to be able to share information with the employers to say, here's what we can tell you today. And obviously that's changed post-COVID, and it will continue to change as we go forward. But
Yep.
snapshot as of today, this is what we can share with you, and it's really good information.
When was the study taken?
Yeah, that was
We
my
did
question.
the study in April, March, April, May, roughly. So this year.
Of this
So it's
year.
a little bit outdated already, but it's good information, so.
It's at least post-COVID, so.
Yeah, did it ask remote or non-remote preferences at all? Just curious.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Remote working or?
Yeah, we did. There's really good updated information. That's changed dramatically. You would be surprised at one point in time in Washington County, we had over 100,000 workers driving outside of the county to work every day. Now, a good percentage of those folks are working home remotely, so it's
Yeah.
really good information. And that's, post-COVID, it's up to date, and I feel like it's pretty accurate as of today. Likely to change going forward,
Yeah,
but it's
that-
good. It's really good.
Also, just starts to help to inform things like park plan and just just where people are spending time and how people are spending time in the community. Yeah, those people
yeah.
not having those commuting hours means people are here.
I can work with staff to
That would be
make happen
wonderful.
if you'd be interested.
Is that information available online?
It is available online. So there's the study, the full study is available online, and I can share the website with staff to send to the EDA, but it's, to be real honest with you, there's a lot of information in there. I feel like the presentation will help kind of summarize it and break it down and give you a chance to ask questions. But there's good information, but there's a lot of data.
Okay, I'd love to see.
But I'll share the link with you.
Great,
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Goal 5, identify barriers to development, redevelopment within the city and look for proactive solutions to reduce, eliminate barriers. So the first one here is perform policy review, tax abatement, business subsidy, TIF programs. That's something that we're doing right now. Identify infrastructure along the 61 corridor for aesthetic improvements, maintenance, develop estimate for work. We haven't done any work on that, but we do have a 61 aesthetic water quality study that was done a number of years ago, so it's we can dust that off and take a look again. Support the county's revolving loan program for small businesses by participating in policy discussions with the CDA and the county work group. I think that's all that's on here. I will note that in coming in to the city last year, the city not having a development director that's really looking at both the physical development that's going on and the economic development and kind of seeing how everything's relating, just my ability to take a look and say, how are we doing business, I think has been a big asset to the community in that we're just looking at how can we streamline some of our processes. I don't know if I've ever mentioned to the EDA, but when I came on, I found out that in order to get a fence permit in the city, it was 12 different steps and 3 different interactions with the city. And there just was a lot of over-engineering in a lot of our planning and zoning processes, our permitting processes. We're still a long ways off from being the best, right? But I think just having me, so thanks, or a me here that can look at the whole picture is really helping reduce a lot of the barriers that we've put in place or that have been built in place because there wasn't a lot of staff. But so when it comes to Goal 5, I think the action step right now of looking at all of those policies is just right on par. Frankly, probably don't want to look at Highway 61 infrastructure right now. I don't want to detract too much from some of that other work, but that's where we're sitting with that goal.
Well, in the Highway 61, granted, that's probably, I don't know if you're looking at the whole stretch there from, south end of town all the way, but with the downtown redevelopment project, maybe we want to look at that and just see how that flows into the rest of it with the aesthetics. I mean, that might be a thought, to see how that develops and how you want the look and feel for the rest of it to flow. But it does need work.
Yeah, right.
We all know that.
Other,
Yeah, as far as the barriers are concerned, I mean, I heard that complaint a lot from different contractors, developers, whatever. And so anything we can do to clean that up is going to help, no question about it.
Abby, you don't have it marked on here. You don't have it called out specifically in the work plan, but I think part of the staff proposal, maybe just good update for EDA, is to talk about kind of the staffing proposal for 2024 that would provide some additional just positional support for exactly what you're talking about, Abby, which is kind of bridging that gap between building and planning. Maybe that's worth just kind of EDA update, because I think that impacts exactly what you're talking about.
Sure. Do you want me now, or do you want when we do staff updates?
Either. Maybe now while we're talking, while we're on topic.
Well, in the proposed fiscal year 2024 budget, positions identified as a half-time, let's just for convenience say half-time planner, half-time EDA coordinator that can focus more on EDA. That's one of the 5 positions that we've asked for the city council. We realized staff that we don't have enough people to do economic development. We just don't. It's never really been, at least since I've been here, probably since 2013, been a big strength of the cities. If I had to I wasn't conservative in asking for 5 positions. I probably should have asked for a full-time EDA person. I think that in the long run, that would benefit the city to put somebody in charge of EDA that can do these plans, that can meet the developers, that can go to these conferences and actually be out there. What would that take? That would take basically raising the levy on EDA a little bit, or using the proposed levy that we have in there now for a full-time person. So whether that's something that will come this year or in the future, I think that's necessary. But right now, we're trying to, once again, one of Abby's reason we hired a community development director was try to get more strength, but we found that Abby got diverted into what she just said, is all fixing the processes and doing things that really have needed to be done for a long time, so we didn't get to EDA. So that's what we're proposing for the '24 budget.
Comments, questions, further thought on specific around Goal 5?
This is all really great. I think feedback and a start of some dialogue that we'll continue to have over these next few months. It would be my goal that the first quarter of '24, we have an update, by the end, no later than maybe the end of the first quarter '24, that we have an updated work plan, one that maybe puts us out a few years, that really kind of hones in our efforts. Nothing against these 5 goals, but 5 goals with 3 action steps each. That's a lot of work for a city of the size that doesn't have dedicated staff. So I think just trying to really think about over these next few months for yourself, as you're out in the community, as you look at these goals and you think about what do we really want to focus our efforts on, that'll help, help us as we kind of keep moving forward. So, all right, you good?
Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
comments before we wrap up? I think it's actually a great transition into our next discussion item, which is Headwaters 123 update, and with specifically the promotion of city-owned properties being one of those key EDA work plan items.
Yeah, so Headwaters Business Park, I included in this this update for you. Just I think the commission or the EDA had seen this in front of you. We were talking about the idea of doing some concept platting, some ghost platting, to really look to see how could that site potentially be broken up into more development sites instead of thinking about it as one big, large parcel. How could we look at this being broken up into maybe a few different parcels? That you had seen those concept plats. We provided that to Brian at CBRE, our real estate broker. Opened this up a little bit more to not just being marketed to exclusively data centers, but also looking at office, medical, some of those. There really hasn't been a lot of interest right now. I had included in the staff report just this idea of how do we want to move forward? Are we okay sitting with the Headwaters Business Park, that Headwaters 123 site, just kind of still keeping it marketed the way it is? Inquiries have come up that since Headwaters Village, the development across Headwaters Parkway, is now going to be developed out by the end of next year. We won't have any more vacant non-residential lots in that development. Do we want to be looking at what are some other opportunities we could have through here? Since releasing the staff report, I did talk with Brian a little bit. He has indicated that there's been a lot of inquiries on residential. I would be reluctant for the city to encourage us to look at changing that back exclusively to residential. He had also said that there isn't as much interest in general in data centers. They come around, but it's like the Easter egg. There's one here and there, they're not everywhere. And so I wanted to at least bring this back to the EDA to see if you had some high-level thoughts on what we're thinking about with the Headwaters site. Again, if none of you say anything, I completely understand, but in the next few months, as we talk about work plan development, what we do with Headwaters 123, I think, is something that we really need to consider if we're going to maybe explore other options.
I know I brought this up when we talked about it last time, and I And I think we said that probably isn't a very workable solution, but warehousing space is so hot with, people buying online. But I think we talked about like semis, things like that, that would be needed. It's problematic for this space. Unless there's, I don't know, unless there's somebody creative that knows how you could do it some other way to get onto 35 or whatever without going through residential and whatever. But, I don't know. I mean, just, again, I guess maybe without the staff and resources, we don't know what else is. I mean, I would agree, data centers aren't really probably where the hotspot is right now. So what is, besides warehousing? What else is trending?
Sure.
What are other communities finding that's going up everywhere if you look at commercial real estate?
There isn't a lot. I mean, there's just construction costs have gone up, the interest rates have gone up. In talking with CBRE, there's a lot of lookers out there, but there isn't a lot of commercial development happening. I'm actually really surprised. We do have quite a bit of commercial development. I'll kind of talk a little bit of what's happening right now in the community. The option, I think, if I remember right, or if it's just been in my head, is the city can also, the EDA can also put out a request for proposals. I think I did put that in my staff report, to see if there's interest out there in partnering with other organizations to see how could it be developed in some fashion.
Can you, maybe to facilitate this conversation, can you flip the, to page 42?
Will you go back to the packet? Yes.
It was right in where, yeah, there you are. I find this map to be just really helpful and if you scroll down or maybe zoom out a little bit so we're seeing more of it on one page. So we've got, retail, restaurant centers to the north. You can see what's centered closer to downtown. But as we think, what's just interesting to me in relationship to this question is we think about, so the property we're talking about is the circle in teal right there. And if you look at what is surrounding that and the potential for, rooftop build out with all of that section there to the west, I guess I would be interested in gathering feedback on what would it take from a city perspective, or how can the city best use that parcel to attract businesses that are of interest, so, residential consumer-based businesses, not residential, being clear, commercial properties that would be supportive of those neighborhoods. And what does that look like for our next development step to maybe open the door a bit for some of those options? Because I'm open to us doing some work in that area, because we suspect that's how that section's going to develop. What I don't want to do is go cross the line that kind of takes us out of some of those larger markets that we've already invested in. And I guess I'm interested in feedback from whether that comes from the developer community or whether that comes from CBRE, on what's our next best step. Just like we took a lot of steps to make ourselves attractive to that data center market and that tech corridor, if we wanted to bridge that a little bit, or even look for, it's 123 acres, it might be not an or, but an and, kind of what would that next step be to have those be attractive to that market? And whether that is an actual proposal or there's some city-based projects.
Sure.
I'm interested in just learning more about what that would be. I see some heads nodding, but anyone jump in if.
President Bain and members of the EDA, maybe I could suggest at a workshop in the not-too-distant future, we could have some developers come in and talk about what's happening right now, because it's changing on a daily basis. Earlier this year in Washington County, the beginning of the year, there was 6 million square feet of industrial buildings being planned, but a lot of that's pulling back right now. And so the market's changing a little bit because of inflation and fuel prices and a lot of uncertainty right now. But I think it'd be really interesting to find out from the folks that are doing that type of work, kind of like a roundtable discussion with a workshop setting to find out what do they think about this. It's kind of like the ULI model. If you remember, we did something not too long ago, maybe about 5 years ago, where we had ULI come in and do a planning event, and there were some developers on that panel. Maybe something similar to that, but not quite as broad as that, maybe focusing specific on commercial. What are the opportunities right now? What are you seeing? What are you doing? That type of thing. And maybe have 3 to 5 come in and just kind of share their thoughts with us if you're open to it. Just an idea.
Certainly, certainly welcome that, and this may also be a question that, just CBRE also, I would expect them to be part of that conversation of just what they're seeing. Part of the answer might be in current economic, it's more of a hold, that the timeline for development might be stretched out, but I guess I don't know that answer, and I also don't want to just make sure we're not missing an opportunity or missing if things are turning in a different direction, we just want to make sure we're prepared.
Maybe what I can do is bring in Brian with CBRE as a first step, that he either, joins us virtually or comes in and just kind of tells you what he's seeing in the market right now, and he's sort of forecasting. I can also just talk informally with him about any recommendations he might have. We've done a lot on this site in terms of, we did the wetland delineation, we did the that study. We've done a few different, I don't remember the name of it. Expedio, is that what it was?
Scipio?
Yes, okay, thank you. We've done a few different things. Maybe Brian can make some recommendations of those small things that we might be able to do to just kind of keep dipping our toes in different markets before, and not being committal to anything. And then if we think we want to bring in some other commercial developers, or because I think that might be an interesting thing our council would be interested in as well, our planning commission might be interested in as well, we'd set that up maybe outside of our normal EDA time frame. Does that sound good?
Yes, seeing heads nod around the table, because I think what's I don't have a crystal ball, but I suspect what is going to happen in absence of active commercial development in that district, we're just going to continue to have more pressure for that to be residential, and that's part of maybe, I don't know how that fits into the equation, but I would expect there to be continued pressure for that to be residential, just given
The other thought-
what's happening around it. No, go ahead.
The other thought is you pointing out what's around there. There's the Y, there's, all that residential. And I don't know that this is going to be as much of a revenue generator as a big industrial building or data center, but the thing that is hot and popping up everywhere are these, pickleball complexes, and being that, the whole pickleball alliance showed up here, the last time. And I'm not just saying just courts, but like the complexes where, talking about a visitors bureau, people are coming for tournaments, and others, maybe, the one that's being built in Roseville, so that's the closest one. There's one being built in Roseville, there's one, I believe, in like Brooklyn Park area. So like on the north side, you could gather people from this end. That's just one idea, but like that has maybe a restaurant, whatever the scale of it is, but it's it's crazy if you, it's a huge thing right now, but all those, residential areas there, and it fits with the Y, and it fits with the ball field kind of area over there. And I think if you build it, they would come, sort of a thing, honestly. But anyway, it's, per whatever, square foot and whatever, doing the analysis. I'm sure the ROI isn't the same, but just an idea,
Yeah.
because there's nothing up on this end.
Well, and to your point about ROI, it's city-owned today, so the ROI today is 0.
Okay.
So, right,
Oh, okay.
so the threshold,
Used to doing
the
P&Ls,
the
so-
bar is low.
Well, you have the apartment complex coming in right there, to the north of that, and on
Right.
the other side, you have the recycling center
Right,
now coming too,
right.
Right.
so.
What you don't have in this whole quadrant is a grocery store to service.
Yes, there you go. Yeah.
That has been a topic for quite some time, as
Why is
maybe
it
trying to
The high
pull
V.
somebody in as far as like a grocery store other than a Walmart,
Yep.
a Cub Foods or something. Whether it's
We-
even just the Ma and Pa Family Market or something, like a Bruce's Foods or something.
Is the Hy-Vee no longer?
My
Well, the-
understanding is still.
Plant.
But also, it was planned as more of a convenience store with some expanded deli options, not so much an actual grocery store.
Yeah.
I have enough
Grocery stores are
direction.
tough, I think that's a tough nut to crack. There are lots of communities that don't have any grocery, I mean, I think about the Farmington conversation right now. They're a community of about similar size, and they have 0 grocery stores in their actual geographic area, and so that is, but it's a tough nut when so many of us are Amazoning it and Instacarting it, and there's lots of options to get groceries.
Amazon just announced you can order food from Amazon. I think that was last week I saw that.
Patrick, is that interceptor line that goes across here, has that been a negative at all, I mean, for somebody that's looking for a large parcel?
It really hasn't been, we haven't got that far to make it a negative. For those who don't know, there's a 36-inch sewer line that goes right through the middle of this property that the Met Council owns. Some of the ghost platting has taken that into account. The fact of the matter is that there will be no buildings built over the top of it. That just won't happen. So the choice is to develop the site where it's going a parking lot over the top of it, or a street, or open field, whatever the case may be, or to relocate it. Relocate it will be very, very expensive.
That's why I was wondering if that,
Yeah.
if you're, somebody is looking for a large parcel, if that,
I mean, if
became a
somebody's
a
looking for
negative.
let's just say 1 million square foot building and it's gonna cover the whole parcel, it's going to be an issue. But if we have a number of different buildings, a smaller square footage, there may be ways to work around it. Hopefully there is,
Think so,
because we don't want to start to pay for the $2 to $15 million project that would cost to move it.
The other thing being that it's city-owned then, as long as you brought that up. I mean, if there's like a part of it reserved for something people have been asking for, which is a dog park. And I know that's not revenue generating, but being, and kind of tying back to your survey of more and more people in the area working remote. And I live near the park in town, and there's just, it's dog city there.
A lot of dogs.
And it's not a very big park. And, you know, people have been asking for it, so just thought I'd throw that in there as an idea.
yeah, on the south side of the airport too, off of the old 202nd Street there, that's an impromptu
Yeah.
walking
You're
area for
right, yes.
quite some time.
Yeah.
But
Out of
it's a great place to
curiosity,
walk.
Do you know what the U was saving that 800 acres in Rosemont for?
I'm sorry.
The University of Minnesota is selling 800 acres to, is it Amazon Data Center in Rosemont?
I
Isn't
read
that
about
the
it, but I don't know
Facebook, isn't that the Meta,
details.
the
Facebook.
Meta
Oh,
data
Meta.
It's
center?
Facebook. It's,
Yeah.
I believe I read, yeah, Facebook is the data center.
So does anybody have any ideas of what they would have used part of it for? So if it was saved for maybe future research center, they could get a much cheaper piece, smaller, right here. It would make a
Not
good
sure.
spot for,
Usually those processes are pretty sophisticated, and they have a site selection team that comes up well in advance of them making an announcement. I'm guessing they're pretty far down the road on that one, but you know, you probably heard not too long ago that there was a very large data center looking at Becker, where the coal plant is being decommissioned, and that is no longer, I understand, in the works. So that large data center opportunity is still out there. They never built in Minnesota, but we should be talking with them about what we could offer.
Which organization was that?
Pardon me?
Which organization did you say was looking?
That one, we have not reached out to that company, but I know that with Excel Energy and our connections with Connexus Energy, we should be talking with them because they're still in the market. We just haven't landed
Who is them?
the name of the company.
Yeah.
I don't know if it ever
Oh.
went public or not.
No,
Oh, sorry.
typically, most of the processes, you don't know who the
Oh, I
company
see.
is.
I thought you mentioned the name and I just didn't catch
But,
it.
but I can tell you that down in Des Moines, Iowa, when, I don't remember who it was, Apple or Google or Facebook, one of them landed there, and all of a sudden in Des Moines, now you see a lot of data centers popping up. So Facebook is coming. So, you know, could there be an Apple or a Google or a Amazon or some other data center that now would say, okay, we need to we need to look at Minnesota and just kind of be ready for that. Not that it happens overnight, but just hoping that if they do show up, we still got the land that we could show them, and got a partnership with the power providers and the fiber providers, so.
We've gone deep on a number of those processes, and so because we've not obviously hit the final, but the conversations have been very positive, and we've been on some finalist lists. I'm just really hesitant to us to do anything to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but it's maybe looking for a solid, second choice or a complementary choice that might also spur some development, because it's like elephant hunting. It might happen, it might not, and.
Do we ever get to know why they didn't choose us?
I don't, no.
No. No.
Haven't you heard of an exit interview?
Well, a lot of times, so you're not always working directly with the recruiters or their developers. You're working with an intermediary company who's saying, can you please fill out these forms? And then, you don't know if you're even included in the first round. Dan and I did meet earlier this year with a site selector. So they're out there. They were looking at Becker as well. And so I think we'll continue to market it. It's in our work plan, right? That's not changing. I'm just encouraging the city and the EDA to consider are there other steps we can take, especially knowing that there are no other pockets really of non-residential guided, exclusively non-residential guided in this area, so for a while.
One of the logos that isn't on this chart is there's a daycare center now that is, I believe, open, right?
They have, yes.
So that is opened right across the street. And then, with Leela being down the street, YMCA is right there. I think the idea of commercial recreation, whether that's pickleball or think about other either education or recreation type amenities, would be, something that there's major transportation in the area. It might not be of enough rooftops to hit some of the metrics that are needed for larger retail or, restaurant type space, but some of those other amenity segments, kind of recreation segments might.
Sure.
I'm not sure exactly what that looks like, but.
We need a trade union school covering multiple trades. Go to one spot, get all your training. Then send them on their way, good paying jobs. Take care of that.
Pointed at you.
Yeah, get on that.
Just so you know that was you.
It was Chris. That was directed at Chris. So. Thank you, President Bain. I appreciate all the dialogue. I think that helps us, and we'll keep these conversations going. I think right now I'll just try to get Brian with CBRE in the next month or so. We'll just have, see what he has to say and kind of go from there. But also to President Bain, thanks for pointing out again the date, those other non-residential businesses that are being built right there. We don't have Bell Bank being shown down there. We do have some other, the vet clinics down there. Those aren't being well represented, and so we'll see that we can get that updated as well.
I'm just thinking about, I'm on the path of dog park, recreation, vets. Anyway, I don't have anything to add. I'm rambling. We can move on. Should we move on to the banner program?
Sure. As noted in my staff report, one of the city councilors had suggested the city look into replacing its banners. Our current system is we replace our banners as they're needed. We did to overhaul all of the banners, not including design, it'd be about, I think if I remember, it was $10,000. And so the question's kind of been raised, do we want to create a new banner program? And I kid you not, I hit send and sent this all over to Karen to send out the packet, and then Patrick and I get notified from the National League of Cities that they're interested in helping partner on a banner program for us. So I wanted to at least just let you know that there's been talk about updating our banners. We would like to wait to continue that conversation until after we've had our meeting to really know what that potential free program is. But we'll bring something back in the next few weeks or next few meetings to let you know what we learn.
Yeah, it's likely that free program may have advertisement on it, I would guess, but we'll find out.
So I don't need any direction. That was more of an update than anything.
Was there something about, and maybe it's in your staff report, there was something about the orientation, there was a kind of a overall comment from Public Works that the orientation, that the rectangular design is less than optimal. Do you have any
so
a
these are
visualis-
really, they're just hitting the wind the wind is hitting them pretty hard. Brackets are breaking easily. Our Public Works Department would recommend more of that triangular shaped design or more of that sail shape. Just tends to not have such of an impact with the wind. So I think as we start to look at what this National League of Cities program is, and then looking at what are some of our other options for banners, we'd probably bring back a few different design options as well. So.
I think that's great. I think also we have, current Lions Club logos on, and there's been a co-sponsorship opportunity to reach back out to them to see if there's some continued partnership opportunity.
Yep, I think so. I think that we would probably look and see if there are other civic organizations that might be interested as well. So,
While this topic's on the table, any other points of feedback related to the banner program? I think there was a perception maybe initially that they weren't being replaced, and they are. I think maybe the question now is just, is there a time for a redesign?
How old are these by chance?
pardon?
How old are these banners by chance?
I don't know how old they are, but like we said, when they get worn, they get replaced, so.
Are they sun faded or anything like that? of
I
any
think
sort?
I think the sun obviously fades them, but also sun does deteriorate fabric and the
Yeah.
wind does havoc on it. So when they get to that point, they're replaced. So most of the banners are probably, I would just guess, every third year. The oldest one probably is 3, maybe 4 years at the most.
Okay.
From a design standpoint, it's probably 2014 or 15. It was right around the time they were developed right after the city did the current branding. And so it was during that Chris Johnson term is when the banner program was started.
But I was going to say, I mean, it's all with the city branding, so in terms of a new design, but I know it's kind of off the table for now until you find out what's going on with that potential partner program, but if it's part of the Highway 61 corridor discussion or the downtown, that's all a look and feel, to me, that sort of dovetails into some of that work, doesn't it? In a separate. I
Yeah,
like things that-
the banners do extend down Broadway as well. So I think
Yeah.
it's both 61 and Broadway, and so I think,
I would put it in that project, but unless that's too far off and we have to address the banners before that would ever be complete.
yeah.
But to me, it's a whole look and feel.
I mean, personally, from a prioritization standpoint of city dollars, I'd rather have more like upgrades of the landscaping that are in you can just see the one to the right of our picture is an empty median right now. And I think right now that's probably still fully mulched in. And so the banners are great, but I think they're okay in its current state if we're talking about additional spend. Yeah. The unmowed lot is a whole different topic, but we'll bring that up for code enforcement.
We're working on an abatement program
That's
as
another
well.
topic.
How many banners are we talking about? Anyways, does anybody have? a
Oh,
number?
I don't know. I'd have to ask Public Works Director Adams to know. I don't know exactly how many. So I think as we learn more about the National League of Cities program, and maybe we'll take an inventory and we'll bring this back just for a topic of conversation as we kind
It'll
of
be
keep
interesting
moving
to
forward.
find out what they have to say about it. So.
I know somebody mentioned to me, oh, maybe it'd be fun to have seasonal ones and you change them every season. And I didn't necessarily mention that to Public Works. I don't know that they would really appreciate that much, but.
Just coming from my previous career in printing and selling banners, they can be made with a little air slit so that the wind doesn't
Oh.
take it. It's just give them a little slit and the wind goes
Not
right through.
then a kite,
There you go.
got it.
Good, thanks.
All right. Anything else on banners?
Nope.
Development update.
I'm just gonna quickly go through, we're nearing the end of the 2023 planning season, and our construction season will be kind of winding down over the next 6 weeks. So a few highlights of the year, the city has approved the Mr. Car Wash development, so we'll have a new car wash on on Broadway Avenue, new Ford dealership off of 12th? No, it's not 12th. Isn't 12, well, over 11th, over by the interstate. We've also improved the Washington County Household Hazardous Waste Site that will be at the intersection of Highway 61 and Headwaters Parkway. We are currently reviewing an expansion for interstate companies. That's on Forest Boulevard near its intersection with Highway 97. Those are our big highlights of our non-residential. We also had a bunch of little things. Forest Lake Vet Clinic expanded. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head now. I just all of a sudden can't. But a couple things. Hidden Creek, it's going to be a 125 lot residential subdivision off of the end of Headwaters Parkway where it meets Fenway Avenue. The first phase, 22 lots, is currently being graded, so we might end up seeing model homes being built this year. That first phase of 22 lots, it's anticipated that there'll be 2 more subsequent phases. Capstone Homes will be the builder on that one. And then tonight, the city council will consider a 72 unit market rate apartment complex in the Headwaters Village development right next to Bell Bank. That will mark that last of the non-resident or in that village development. Frankly, for a city of our size, we've got a lot going on. So whatever has been going on these last few years that the EDA has been marketing and promoting, I think that has been working. We are already talking with development teams about 2024 spring construction projects, non-residential, so drive-through coffee, and just another retail, kind of budget retail. So there's things that are happening that are in the mix. So just moving on, do you mind if I move right on to staff updates? I did attend the Career Launch Summit. That was really great. I will agree with Nanette. It is awesome to see our business community in our schools and the local governments there as well. I know Mike and Molly are very happy to see our presence there. I have also indicated I'd be willing to help participate in any sort of forums that they need for students. They said that there is definitely no interest from most of the students about government. They see government and they see it as the political divide everybody's seeing on TV. They think national. So I've been really trying to help them think about how we can help explore our youth to local government positions, or who am I and what do I do and how does that work within our community. So, but doing what we can to kind of help keep that partnership. And that was really the only other update I had for you.
Very good. Thank you, Abby. Chris, Washington County update.
Thank you, President Bain and members of the EDA. I don't have a formal update, but I just want to let you know that I've been working with staff at the city to start talking about the next version of the work plan, and maybe starting with a SWOT analysis and a list of assets. I know that when we did this back in 2018, 2019, we're still working off that same SWOT analysis that we did many years ago. It might be time to refresh that. We've got new faces, new members of the EDA, new planning commission members, new council members, so let's maybe continue to talk about that with staff to update that, refresh it, make sure we're on the same page, and we can start that sometime either this year late or early next year, whatever works best for staff and the EDA, but probably some kind of a workshop environment to kick that off, and then we'll take it to the next level and develop, if we do decide to go down that road and create a new EDA work plan, or maybe just update the action steps, we'll have some more fresh information. So just wanted to share that with you.
Great.
Thank you.
Great
And
perspective.
happy to stand for any questions.
Any questions for Chris? All right, very good. So glad you're here. Nanette?
From our perspective at the chamber, just a couple of things that I'll bring up, and then we can go on our merry way. We are looking at doing some fall visits again. We continue to do our visits, and they're going great, but with a little bit more emphasis around our strong communities. We've had, that was something that we created during COVID, was a campaign around not just Forest Lake, but strong Forest Lake area. And so just visiting, whether they be members or non-members, but activating some of our folks and going out and doing more of a concerted effort for fall visits. The second piece that we're working on in conjunction with Abby and Jamie here at the city is the hometown holiday celebration. And we will be, as a chamber, launching a program that is called We Are Local. And so just kind of playing off of that and looking to bring in the shop local aspect along with the programming that's going to happen for hometown holiday. The last piece that's also in review and not probably going to happen yet this fall, but looking for 2024, Abby and I, as well as several others, have started to have conversations around building a leadership program. And so we feel like we've got strong foundation now, chamber-wise, but we're really looking to engage our top leaders. And so that's something that we'll be looking at building out in 2024. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd gladly entertain.
Any questions for Nanette? All right, glad you're here.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, that is the end of our planned agenda this evening. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will move we adjourn.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.